Good morning. It's Friday, September 20th. The war in the Middle East is now 350 days old. I'm Jonathan Schanzer, Senior Vice President for Research at Foundation for Defense of Democracies. Welcome back yet again to the FDD Morning Brief. The fallout continues from the Israeli operation that detonated Hezbollah communications equipment, killing scores and injuring hundreds of fighters from the Iran-backed terrorist group. Israelis sheltered in their homes last night, and Israeli fighter jets pounded targets across Lebanon, taking out rocket launchers, munitions, and more. Hezbollah has been hammering northern Israel this morning. This could be the big one, folks. The dreaded war in the north could have arrived. I don't think anyone should welcome it, but it may be where we are. We'll talk about some of this morning right here on the FDD Morning Brief. In a few minutes, we'll hear from Hen Mazzig. He's with the Tel Aviv Institute, and he's become quite a popular figure on social media since this war broke out. He also advises Hollywood influencers on their social media content. Pretty cool if you ask me, but if certain social media platforms are an enigma to some of you, you're not alone. On October 6th of last year, I had no idea how Instagram worked. Total boomer over here. Today, Instagram is an important part of the FDD Morning Brief's marketing strategy. Who says you can't teach an old dog new tricks? Woof. Hezbollah Secretary General Hassan Nasrallah took the airwaves yesterday from his bunker in Lebanon. In one of the more bizarre speeches I've seen him deliver, and there have been many over the years, the leader of Iran's most powerful proxy said Israel crossed a red line by detonating beepers and walkie-talkies across Lebanon, leading to chaos, castration, blindness, and the deaths of his fighters. I get that Nasrallah is angry. The Israelis embarrassed him, and they took out some of Hezbollah's top brass. But get this, Nasrallah has the chutzpah to say the Mossad operation was a declaration of war. Let's unpack this for a minute. Hezbollah has been attacking Israel for nearly a year, every single day. The group began firing unprovoked at Israel on October 8th, one day after Hamas slaughtered 1,200 Israelis and kidnapped 240 others. The Hezbollah military campaign since then has included 7,000 rockets, drones, and missiles all across northern Israel. The attacks have forced as many as 150,000 Israelis from their homes. The impact on Israelis, both psychologically and economically, cannot be overstated. Meanwhile, Nasrallah continues to call for Israel's destruction, coordinating with Iran and its proxies in a seven-front war against the Jewish state, the casus belli, Israel's mere existence. So now, with the Hamas war more or less under control, the Israelis have finally dropped the gloves and started fighting back. And they're fighting back harder than we have seen to date. Nasrallah doesn't like it? Tough. That's what happens when you start a war. Now for your headlines. Headline 1, the UN General Assembly passed a non-binding resolution demanding that Israel withdraw from the West Bank, Gaza, and East Jerusalem within 12 months. And that's not all. The General Assembly also called for sanctions, boycotts, and arms embargoes against Israel. It deemed any Jewish presence in these disputed areas to be flat out illegal. For all of Israel's imagined crimes, the UN said that Israel must pay reparations. Holy moly. 124 countries voted in favor of this twisted resolution. 14 voted against and 43 abstained. The U.S. opposed the measure, but some of Israel's so-called allies cowered and abstained. I'm looking at you, Canada, Britain, and Germany. Totally shameful. In the meantime, it's long past due to take a wrecking ball to the United Nations. New York could use a few more parking lots, maybe a Jewish deli. Headline 2, Israeli authorities indicted an Israeli businessman for his involvement in an Iranian assassination plot against senior Israeli officials. The man's name is Moti Maman. He's 73 years old and has extensive connections in Turkey. According to the Israeli police and Shin Bet, two of Maman's Turkish contacts connected him to an Iranian operative, codenamed Eddie. Maman spoke with Eddie over the phone in April, and in May, he was smuggled to Iran to meet Eddie in person. That's when Maman agreed to cooperate with the Iranian regime. Fast forward to August, after Hamas chief Ismail Haniyeh was assassinated, Maman traveled once more to Iran to meet with Eddie and other Iranian officials. Maman's handlers asked him to assassinate a senior Israeli official. Maman asked for $1 million. The Iranians paid him $5,000. Israeli authorities arrested him when he arrived back in Israel. Case closed, I guess. Headline 3, Israeli media revealed new details about the collapse of the ceasefire in November. This was interesting. The ceasefire lasted 7 days, if you recall, during which Hamas released 81 Israeli hostages. On what would have been day 8 of the deal, Hamas was slated to free 10 living hostages, but at the last minute, the terror group offered 3 living hostages and 7 bodies. The Israelis were not having it. Here's the interesting thing. Among the purported corpses that Hamas planned to return were female hostages that Israel knew were alive. That signaled to the Israelis that Hamas was going to execute the women if Israel agreed to the terror group's updated terms. Unconvinced, one of the supposed dead bodies that Hamas offered to return was Noa Argamani. Israeli forces rescued her alive in Gaza back in June. Truly twisted stuff. All right, it's now time to talk to Hen Mazzig from the Tel Aviv Institute. I've been watching him dazzle on social media for several months now, and then I met him out in LA over the summer. He has quite a following in Hollywood, and he knows a lot about the war of ideas taking place on social media. I caught up with him a few days ago. We'll play our conversation now for you live on the FDD Morning Brief. Welcome to the FDD Morning Brief, Hen Mazzig.
Hi, Jonathan.
Good to have you with us. I want to just start this morning by asking you just about your personal story. I know you were born in Israel. You live in London. I see you all over the United States. What is your background? How did you get here?
Yeah, it sounds like I'm a Mossad agent or something, right?
That's right.
That's what many people claim, but unfortunately, it's not that exciting. But I grew up in Israel. I served in the IDF for 5 years as a humanitarian officer in Kogat, worked with international organizations, with UNRWA, the UN, the Red Cross. I've seen a lot of the things that we are seeing today unfolding back then. And then after my military service, served for 5 years in the West Bank and Gaza, I moved to Seattle and I became more involved in the work of advocacy. I worked with pro-Israel organizations, and I was shocked to see that the progressive movement, people on the left that I feel very aligned with, were rejecting me because I'm Israeli, and there was a lot of misconceptions. And left Seattle, moved back to Israel, and started a social media company. I wasn't doing this work that I do today in terms of advocacy for Israel. It was just a company for social media, working with tech companies. I had a client in Ghana. I was working with the president of Ghana on his election campaign. And then I found that social media has a massive power that can bring down governments and elect people and crown kings. And I thought, what if we take these tools that we have on social media to help our community? So about 6 years ago, I started the Tel Aviv Institute together with Dr. Ron Katz. He was a professor for propaganda and rhetoric from Berkeley University, and we started analyzing hate speech online. We have a team of data scientists and linguists and experts that are looking into hate speech online. And we found that people really don't like Jews on social media or Israel. And we had to do something to fix it. We also realized that the social media giants are not as interested in fighting it as much as the Jewish community is. At the end of the day, those are businesses. So we had to come up with a solution to it. And the solution was to do what we do today, which is working with power multipliers, with influencers that are speaking on social media to audiences that are diverse. We're looking for influencers that are outside of the Jewish echo chamber, that are not dedicating their whole platform only for Israel and Jewish issues and anti-Semitism. And we're training them. We give them the tools and the support to do it. We have over 150 influencers in our network. Each one of them can have a platform as big as millions of followers, and few that have hundreds of thousands of followers. But working with them, we are able to reach much larger and diverse audience with the messaging that helps Israel and the Jewish people.
So I want to unpack a little bit of that, but maybe let's just start with the evolution of social media. I mean, you started in this business before Instagram was a thing. Now, Instush, as the Israelis would call it, is massive, right? I mean, it's the way that I think a lot of people under the age of 40 actually get their news. This was something that I've only started to dabble in since the war began, when I began to realize how important it was in terms of getting your message out there. So tell us just a little bit about the evolution of social media and how you look at where it's going.
Yeah, I mean, when I started, Facebook was the big thing where all the young people were at, and where we shared our ideas. Instagram was just this platform where people would share photos. No one was thinking that far ahead. And today, I think Facebook is a platform that not many young people are as engaged in. And even Instagram, I was giving a talk in San Francisco to students today. And I asked them, how many of you are using Instagram? Not that many students are using Instagram as much as I would think. I think maybe half of the room was raising their hands. There's new platforms coming all the time. A lot of them are on TikTok. But social media is changing rapidly, and new platforms come in and they take over platforms that we thought were dead, like Snapchat is making a comeback now. The use of social media is very diverse. But what is true to all of those platforms is that young people consume news through these platforms. They're going into pages that create and accounts that are creating content that is meant to make them feel in a specific way, content that is not verified. There's no sources. The social media giants are not doing much or not doing enough rather to correct misinformation, because a lot of the time misinformation gets people more involved and keeps them on the platforms, which that's what they want to have on their platform. More users engaging more. Every time you are upset about something on social media, someone in Silicon Valley is making another dollar. So that's the reality of social media, and the way to combat it is by playing the game. You know, the game is already set. There's rules to follow. We won't be able to, I don't think, to either completely change social media or change social media platforms. But the way to do it is, if 5 years ago, my organization and myself, we used to focus on writing articles and was published in the LA Times and NBC News and everywhere in America. Now, this is not as valuable as having an Instagram graphics and a few slides that reaches millions of people. My content was viewed by over 300 million users on social media since October 7th, which is massive. It's numbers that not even, CNN and BBC and Sky News, all of them together do not reach that many viewers. So you really can make a massive impact if you're doing it right.
Let me ask you though, I fully understand what you're doing and I support it. I think it's really important, especially because you can't, as they say, don't hate the player, hate the game. This is the game, right? This is exactly what's going on. But you think it's healthy? There was a time where editors were the people who were kind of the filter for the content. And now there is virtually no filter. And it is really like the Wild West right now. I certainly appreciate the need. But at some point, do you think that there's going to have to be new rules written, or is that just impossible under the current market environment that we're in?
And we're working with people in Meta and in Twitter, X, and we're trying to make a difference. But we've been doing it for 6 years, and I haven't seen much difference with those social media companies. Even when they announce new policies, we were able to make them change a few policies as well. We have, at the Tel Aviv Institute, we have several successes, but still, I don't see that changing. And social media is not going anywhere. And should we put our faith into the BBC editorial board, or who can we trust really to be accurate or to hold up any standards of fair reporting? If the BBC had to apologize several times, and we found that over 1,500 times during this war, they have published misinformation, according to a recent report that was published in the Telegraph. We can't trust mainstream media, we can't trust social media. And I think as Jewish people, we are left with the same realization that we had throughout the centuries, is that if we don't work to fight for ourselves and help ourselves, no one is going to do it for us. That's what Zionism is. So I'm feeling like this is what we're doing.
So you're telling me that social media is a Zionist project. Okay. Tell me a little bit about the influencers that you work with. It's an impressive list. You've got some really interesting people that you help to curate the kind of content that you're talking about, right?
Yeah. We have an amazing group of people, a roster of people that we worked with. you've been to one of our conferences recently in LA. You've met Deborah Messing and Emmanuel Cherky, and there's an amazing group of people that we work with. They're all on our website. The work that we do with them is that we bring them to those laboratories where we give them all the information. We don't hide anything from them. We say, okay, this is the situation, for better or for worse. This is what you're going to encounter on social media. You know, like when you go to a lawyer before a trial, and the lawyer would ask you, tell me the worst stuff. I need to be prepared for everything that is going to come up in court, even things that you're ashamed of. And we do that. We give them everything because we want them to be prepared. And then when they go out to social media and start speaking about these issues, we are right there helping them, holding their hands. We found that giving people talking points doesn't work as well as working with them to say what they want to say in their voice on social media. People follow them because they believe that what they say is authentic. That's why social media influencers is becoming such a big business, because their audience think that it's an advice from a friend. They really trust those social media influencers to be their friends. So we let them say what they want to say in their voice, but we have a team of content writers, video editors, graphic designers, people that work every day with those content creators, helping them create content. We make sure that their platforms don't turn into a platform like mine that is just about Israel and Jews and anti-Semitism, but that their platform is, we have a vegan chef. So we're not going to tell the vegan chef to start advocating for Israel to his 500,000 followers. But when he wants to do a recipe that is Jewish, we did a series called Oy Vegan, which was about cooking vegan Jewish food. And then he spoke about his Jewish heritage and his Jewish origin. So it's a way of bringing Jewish issues in Israel and anti-Semitism in a way that is palatable, meeting people where they're at. That's what we're doing.
Oy Vegan. Okay. Last question for you. Just curious, what do you expect now? We're, moving away from social media. We're now almost a full year into this war. I'm sure you didn't expect the war to break out when it did. You probably didn't expect it to last as long as it has. What are your thoughts for our audience here at the FDD Morning Brief about where we're going?
I wish I had an optimistic view of the future right now, but I'm not as optimistic. I see that this war is going to continue. And I mean, you would be the security analysis you would be able to provide security analysis that is far better than mine. But in terms of social media, I think the fight for Israel and against anti-Semitism is going to continue. I think it's not going anywhere. And what I am happy about, and I wrote it on my Twitter or Instagram recently, on how October 7th taught us that the entire world, or a lot of people around the world, really don't like Jews, or worse. But it also taught us how strong the Jewish community is and how much we love each other. And that gives me a lot of hope, seeing a lot of new Jewish voices coming into the fold and speaking up and being more proud. It gives me hope. And I think that as always, we shall overcome in this time too.
Love ending on an optimistic note here. Hen Mazzig, thank you for joining us today on the FDD Morning Brief.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Little something different here at the FDD Morning Brief. Never thought I'd interview someone about social media platforms. Here's what FDD has on tap for you today. My colleagues Cameron McMillan and Brad Bowman have a piece in Defense News about the possible imminent withdrawal of U.S. forces from Iraq. They emphasize that a premature exit could have severe consequences and may even trigger a resurgence of the Islamic State. America's credibility is already reeling from the disastrous U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan. Let's not repeat the same mistakes here, shall we? FDD and the Cyberspace Solarium Commission hosted a great event up on Capitol Hill yesterday with Senator Angus King, an independent from Maine. The discussion revolved around America's cyber policy and how to deter our adversaries from engaging in cyber attacks against America. The panelists proposed ideas that Congress and the incoming administration could implement to address some gaps we have in the cyber realm. I encourage all of you to catch that discussion on FDD's website or the FDD Events podcast. And finally, in his latest column for the Washington Times, FDD founder and president Cliff May tears apart EU chief diplomat Joseph Borrell's claim that there is no military solution to Hamas. Borrell said that, quote, Hamas represents an idea and you cannot kill an idea with bombs, end quote. Cliff fires back with a quick history lesson on successful battles against other evil ideologies. Burrell should know better. Comments like these actually prop up Hamas and other terrorist groups that threaten Europe. Okay, that's going to do it for today. Read our expert analysis on our website, FDD.org. Read our quick takes on X at FDD and support our work with a tax-deductible donation, please, at FDD.org/invest. Tune in Monday for another installment of the FDD Morning Brief. We'll be speaking to Qasim Hafiz from a terrific organization called Christians United for Israel, or CUFI. I hope everyone has a nice weekend. Let's hope it stays calm. I'm Jonathan Schanzer, signing off for FDD.